Well, hello again and welcome to Rolynn's Reviews. We are continuing our OHS series, our OHS Spotlight series to be more specific. And we are highlighting former students that attended OHS. How you doing, Prime Time? So they're filling up the room now. Some students now, if you guys remember, we've discussed OHS has a very transient population, not just for teachers, but for students as well, because it is a military population. So I reached out and got in contact with Mr. Corbin Robinson. Do you remember, Corbin, when you came over to OHS and you were just a little freshman, a little mousy looking, and we immediately bonded because you remembered me from OMS?
I do.
So, okay, yeah, your teachers are coming in here now. So good, they get to ask you questions. So those of you who don't know, Corbin is a law clerk in Arkansas for a federal district judge, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and so we're just going to continue. And Miss Barnes McCoy said hello. Daphne says hello. All right, so they're all coming in to say hello and to cheer you on. Folks, go ahead and hit that like button. If you will, go ahead and share this on your various forms of social media. You know the routine. I ask questions about the career. I ask questions about how CTE courses helped in that particular career. So please feel free, guys. The subbies in the comment section, I'll be asking Corbin questions, and then I'll be reading your questions to him as well. So I guess the first thing we need to discuss is your OHS experiences, and how was that for you?
Well, I mean, I remember it being a positive experience overall.
Okay.
I attended OHS for 2 years, as we were saying before going live.
Okay.
We moved out, growing up in a military household, and then moved to Southern Illinois. But those 2 years were really impactful on me.
Right.
Well, several teachers that I met that I still am in contact with today, yourself included, Ms. Hackett. I haven't talked to Ms. Barnes, Ms. McCoy in a long time, but I remember her, Mr. Clark, Ms. Henry. There's a lot that I remember. And in the CT classes, I know you're going to get into this later, but they were particularly impactful on me. And really, they led me to go in and get a degree in business, and then ultimately shifted gears and went to law school. But that business foundation is so important to what I do today and what I do in my career. So that was really where it all started. And then so it was a positive, it was a good experience.
So what were some of the specific business courses that you took in the CTE department?
I think all of them that were offered to me, I took. I mean, of course, business law with Mr. Clark, that was really interesting to me, and kind of one of the early things that sparked my interest in a career in the legal profession. I think the accounting courses, the Microsoft courses.
Oh, yeah.
I'm amazed how taking the Microsoft courses and getting certified. I work with folks now who they're able to use Microsoft Suite, but they're not as advanced as some of us who went to OHS and got certified with the great teachers there. And so that, even though it was way back when, it seems like now, I mean, I still use those skills today.
Wow.
I think, the intro to business, I remember taking that course. I took everything that was offered to me in that department. That was my hallway over there.
Whoop, whoop. Obviously I'm CTE. So how you doing, partner? I have to toot that horn. Now, what sparked did you have an interest before, or you took the CTE courses and you were like, okay, this is what I'm interested in so far as a career is concerned?
I mean, I'd have to think. I mean, going back to Overhills Middle School, taking some of the CTE courses there, Miss Rogers, Miss Lee,
right,
and so that was really, I guess, like the foundation to the foundation. Taking those classes and then getting involved with FBLA, that was a huge part of my life. It still is today, And so FBLA really aligns with the business CTE courses that are offered. And so those two things went hand in hand. And I think once I got into kind of the first experience, the first class, it's like being hooked. There was no getting out. Yeah.
So for those that don't know, tell us, what does FBLA stand for and what does it do?
Yeah, FBLA is Future Business Leaders of America. It is an organization I joined at Overhills Middle School in 6th grade, and then continued to be involved with at Overhills High School. After I moved, continued to be involved with in high school in Southern Illinois. Continued to be involved in college when I went to college in St. Louis, through law school, and today I participate as an alum of the program. And what FBLA does is really works to prepare students for different careers in business, or careers where they're going to need business skills. And so it takes the learning in the classroom in the CTE classes and really like puts it on steroids and puts students out where they can put those skills to work, whether that's like a competitive event or a student election or something like that. They're able to take those skills and apply them outside the classroom.
So do you think that, or do you feel that you would be where you are today had you not taken the CTE courses and been involved in the FBLA?
No, I can easily answer that. No, definitely wouldn't be where I am today. You know, it's hard to reverse engineer it and think about what direction my life would have taken had I not done that. What I can say is that I'm grateful that I did, and I'm grateful that this is the path that it led me down. You know, CTE courses really, and this is not to knock the other courses, they're important, but CTE courses give you some real life skills, right? Set you up to enter good careers and then establish foundations for good careers. And that's exactly what they did for me. Like I said, you know, I have lifelong friends and teachers and peers from those programs, and still stay involved to this day to give back and try to build those experiences for today's students. So yeah, definitely wouldn't be where I am today without it.
Wow. And of course, CTE, I bleed CTE. We all know that. So love to hear that. So again, for those of you who just came in, so Corbin is a law clerk for a federal district judge. So Corbin, if we have students who are sitting in our classes now and they were interested in that particular career pathway, which courses would you suggest them enrolling in?
Yeah, well, so there's two sides to the answer to that question. I mean, one would be, if you wanted to do what I do now, you've got to go to law school at some point in your life.
Right.
And so take the courses that are going to prepare you for that. But my answer to what courses are going to prepare you to go to law school might surprise some. Really, it's the courses that interest you.
Wow.
There's really no prereq to law school or a career in the legal profession. It's do what you enjoy. So whether that is like ag science, right? Like there are lawyers who work in the ag science industry, and having that background knowledge of ag science is incredibly important. You could be working on a patent for a new crop seed, you know, or fertilizer or something like that. And having that background knowledge is vital to that line of work. So take whatever interests you. But if you do want to be a lawyer, you read and write a lot. So I would take courses that would let you read and write a lot. That's really helpful.
Wow. Okay, that's some good info. And those folks in the comment section, if you have questions for Corbin, please feel free to ask. He's more than willing to answer. Who inspired you to become a law clerk? If you had to choose one person that really inspired you.
It's a tough question. I don't know if I could pinpoint a single person.
Okay.
Honestly, it's really been a culmination of the people I've met along the journey.
Okay.
You know, you meet some people who have gone on and done that, and they're inspiring. But then you meet some people who just cheerlead you on to go and do it, right? And they're just on the sidelines, rooting for you. And so they're equally important groups of people in your life. I couldn't choose one person because that's running the risk of not naming another. And so, but it's really been a culmination.
That's fine. That's fine. Some people can choose one. Some people, like me, I have more than one. So yeah, okay. So that you're perfectly fine. What is the best career decision that you've ever made thus far?
The best I've made, probably taking this job I'm in now.
Okay.
I had some opportunities. My roots are in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm going to be long term. That's where I went to college and law school, and so spent a lot of time there. And I had good, lucrative opportunities there available to me. But I took this job, which is in Arkansas, 6 hours away from where my roots are. But there's a few reasons why it was a really good decision. One, it took going out on your own to a whole new level, right? I mean, I moved 6 hours away from where my family is, or at least all my immediate family.
Right.
Really just completely went out on my own, took on a big boy job, for lack of a better phrase.
Oh yeah.
Pay all the bills on your own. You just got to go out and make it on your own.
You do.
So taking that jump, like that was a big decision, but it was a good one. It's one that I look back on, and I am glad that I made it. So, if you have an opportunity and it requires you to move across the country or go to an unfamiliar place, especially when you're young, in your mid 20s, like I am, I say take that opportunity, go do it, because most opportunities are reversible. You don't like it, you can go back. You don't like the career, you can switch careers. You don't like your job, you can switch jobs. You don't like where you live, you can move. I mean, most choices are reversible, and so usually there's no harm in just going out and doing it. You don't know what's going to happen.
Sounds good. Corbin, there's a question for you from Sugar Daddy, and I know he's from St. Louis. He wants to know, which school did you attend?
Yeah, so I did my undergraduate degree at St. Louis University. Did it in the business school, economics there.
Okay.
And, then I did law school at Washington University in St. Louis.
Okay.
Yeah, which is just on the other side of the city from SLU. Yep.
Okay, Sugar Daddy, I guess that answers your question. He's from Sugar Daddy's from St. Louis. So anytime someone mentions that, he's on it. Good question, Sugar Daddy. What are some career challenges that you face in your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that I've faced early on. One is, it can be tough to transition from school to work.
Right.
To go from having the freedom of basically creating your schedule in college and in graduate school, design your own time outside of classroom time when you're in school, really like your own boss when you're in school. You don't show up, it's on you. When you get a job, it's a different story. Usually you got to show up on time. You've got to complete things on time, right? And the difference is in school, if you don't perform well, you're pretty much just bearing those consequences on your own. In the real world, if you don't perform, there's normally consequences on other people. And whether that be your boss, your coworker, your client, or someone, and for me, in court, when the court doesn't function right, there's consequences for people's lives. And so it was a big jump. The schedule adjustment was big for me, and that was kind of tough. And then there's I think a lot of people experience this, myself included. There's some level of imposter syndrome sometimes.
Right.
I'm out of school. Okay, am I really good enough to do this job? Is this really what I'm meant to do? And just sometimes thinking those things and thinking, have I made the right decision? But a lot of times when that happens, I just fall back on that. Well, you ride it out, and decisions are reversible. You write it out, and if you want to make a change, you want to make a shift later on, you can do that. But use what you're doing now and your experience now to kind of inform that decision down the road.
And I'm glad you said that again, when you were sitting in a classroom at OHS, of course, your teachers, I guess it all sounds the same like the teacher on the Charlie Brown cartoon. Wow, 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 wow. So now it's so very interesting as I talk to all my former students, and now they're all grown and mature. And they're saying the very same things that I was remember that I said to you when you were in my classes, and so I'm like, okay, you have arrived. You're mature now. And your favorite teacher, Miss Hackett, she says, when you were faced with large challenges in life, how did you go about handling them? And how did you go about keeping your way while handling them? Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot to that question. Yeah. I think first and foremost, you got to have your group of people that that you lean on for support. That's so important.
Oh yeah.
It's so important, and particularly have people in your group that are outside of your line of work, outside of your family, outside of your city, even if you can, because you don't want siloed perspectives. And so whenever I face a major challenge, that's the first thing I do is I lean on my inner group, my close supporters.
Yeah.
Share with them candidly. I seek their advice, their guidance, and I expect my group to be candid. And just like whenever they lean on me in reverse, I'm candid with them.
Right.
So I think that's number one. Number two is I try not to make any decisions or to face challenges hastily. I try to take time to prepare, right, to think things through. How do we want to tackle this challenge? And that brings me to the last part that I'll say to answer that question is there's a really good book that I read a few years ago. It's called Crucial Conversations. And kind of the premise of the book is when you go in to have what's a crucial conversation with someone, and that can take many different forms, you've got to think, what really is the outcome that we're going for here?
Right.
Everything else aside, my emotional feelings aside, my animosity towards you or my liking towards you, right, or vice versa, like everything else aside, what is the optimum outcome for us?
Right.
And then you've got to position yourself and approach the situation or the conversation in order to get towards that optimum outcome. And so I think leaning on your supporters, figuring out, taking time to figure out what's the optimum outcome when I approach this challenge, and then going in with that game plan. That's kind of how I approach. But then I'll tack one more thing on the end here. You got to be flexible too. You face challenges in life. You don't know what life's going to throw at you. You really don't. And a lot of times you can go in with plan A, and plan A doesn't work. And so it's really important to have plan B or plan C, or be able to shift to another plan and to kind of just let that be the way the tide rolls in and just roll with it is helpful. But that's a good question. I expect nothing less from Ms. Hackett to ask those challenging questions. But
No, Ms. Hackett.
Oh yeah.
Very good, Corbin. You did a good job with your answer there. How do you set yourself apart from other people in your profession? So that's important as well. What do you do differently? What do you do? How do you go above and beyond?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's tough in any profession to do that. It's very tough in the legal profession because you have a lot of people that strive to go above and beyond. That's why they're there. But I would say the number one thing that I personally try to do is my attitude. I try to keep my attitude positive all the time.
Okay.
That's on the good days and the bad days. I try to have a positive attitude. Try to be the positive cheerleader for my coworkers in the office.
Right.
I think that can set a lot of people apart if you approach things with positive attitude. Because attitudes are really contagious. I know that's another thing that is said in high school all the time, but it's so true. It's so true.
They are.
Yeah. And so you've got to do that. Otherwise, I mean, especially earlier on in your career, you got to be willing to put in the work. And that can be tough sometimes, especially when we think about that transition from school to work.
Right.
Something that I found very early on that coasting is really not, it's not an option for you anymore when you get out into the workforce.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Yep. And so, for better or for worse, you've really got to be able to put in the work. And you know what? Some people have to put in more work than others to get the same
Right.
result. Like, that's just the way life is.
That's
Um,
a true statement.
yep. And so, if you need to put in more work to shine brighter in the office
Right.
or to stand out, then you just got to do it. The alternative is you don't stand out, and
Right. I have a question for you. Let me see. So Mr. K. Will says, I always ask my students this at the end of the year. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice, what advice would you give? So yeah, we all have to do a little reflecting, don't we? Good, K. Will. How you doing, Spiky? So if someone asked, what would be the most rewarding part of your career, if you had to give someone an answer for that? The most rewarding part.
I think honestly the most rewarding part is seeing the consequences that my work has in the everyday lives of people.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and that's from where I sit now. I work with a judge, and so what we do, what my boss does, impacts people's lives a little differently than the
Right.
lawyers who are on the other side of the courtroom, right? But very soon I'll be on that other side of the courtroom. Um, but seeing the positive impact that you can have in folks' lives, and normally when folks are in court, usually there's an issue or there's something that needs to be solved.
Right.
And, sometimes it can be very positive, but majority it's not. And so you're helping someone through a challenge, and so
Right.
seeing an outcome that is acceptable to them is very rewarding. I'll share some information from when I was still in law school. We were able to represent folks through what were called legal clinics, and they
Okay.
provide free legal services to people based on certain criteria. And so I
Right.
participated in our First Amendment legal clinic at WashU, and so people who wanted or needed to enforce their First Amendment right to free speech
Right.
could come to the clinic if they couldn't afford representation otherwise.
Okay.
And, I met with a fella, and when I was there, we brought him on as a client, a homeless veteran who just wanted to hold his sign out on the side of the road.
Oh,
Bless
wow.
people, it just said God bless it, and it
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
ask for money or anything. It just said God bless. And the city and the police department in particular had really given him a rough go around. And the case resolved after I had left because that's the nature of litigation. But he ended up getting a very sizable settlement.
Oh, wow.
And so one that I won't, share publicly, but he got a sizable settlement, and the city struck out their ordinances that were violating his rights, and so they weren't violating others' rights. And so seeing an outcome like that for someone is really what makes the day-to-day worth it.
Oh, wow. That's an excellent example. Okay. Whoa. So if I have current students that are interested in becoming a law clerk for a federal district judge, what are some leadership skills or traits, characteristics that they need to be a success?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, you've got to learn to be a follower and a leader at the same time, if you will.
Okay.
Especially in my job, I work under the direction of a judge.
Right.
And so I've got to be able to carry things out the way he wants them carried out. I've got to be able to follow his leadership. And so learning when is the time to follow and when is the time
Right.
to lead, so to speak, or to be able to do those things simultaneously is really important. So, and leadership isn't always this top down
Right.
scheme. A lot of times leadership is putting the example out there in the way that you act and conduct yourself for those who are horizontally with you, if you will, like your peers, your colleagues,
Right.
coworkers. And so being able to do those things simultaneously, I think, is really important. Otherwise, I think just being a lawyer on the whole, one of the leadership characteristics that's really important is just almost stoicism or steadfastness.
Right.
Level-headedness. You face a lot of challenges, you face a lot of heated rhetoric sometimes, a lot of emotion in these kinds of situations, and so
Oh,
being able to be the one to slow things down, and
Right.
react appropriately, I think is really important.
Oh, wow. Now, what about you and I had a conversation before we came on live. Now, what about social media? And some people a lot of people are addicted to social media. So please share with my audience. So I may have students who are interested in becoming, law clerks for federal judges, federal district judges. So what if they're addicted to social media? Share with my audience, our audience here, what you told me when I told you to share the link on your social media pages. Tell them what you told. Share it with me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so that's I'm going to answer your question in two parts. Uh, the what I shared with you before is, at least in my job, posting on social is really not something that's available to me,
Right.
because of the sensitive position, because of working for a judge and things. Posting on social, it's better just to not do that, right?
Mhm.
Protect
Mhm.
against anything coming back at you or who you
Right.
with in the future. Not to say that anyone's posting anything bad, but to prevent any misuse of anything you post, it's better just not to. And really, that's advice that over time I've come to adopt just in my personal life too.
Right.
I don't post much on social media at all, very little. And beyond that, I try to limit my time spent on social media. And there's
Right.
a couple of reasons for that. One, a lot of times we waste too much time on social media.
We do. We do.
We waste way too much time. I think they call it doom scrolling now. You start to scroll on something, and the next thing you know, it's 3 or 4 hours later, and you've wasted so much of your time.
Yep.
And I think you would find that really successful people don't spend 5, 6 hours on social media every day.
Facts. Facts.
But beyond that, there are severe psychological effects, I think, that our society's feeling from the overuse of social media,
Right.
especially people in my age group and younger than I am. Um, Social media, that a lot of people go to it knowingly or not to get the instant dopamine effects. Uh,
Right.
that they get instant gratification from it, but that's not the way the world works. And that's dangerous for you. It leads to loneliness. And that's what statistics and research shows us is too much time spent on social media leads to loneliness. And so
Wow.
I would encourage anybody to, social media has positive aspects to it.
Right.
There are good uses for it. But I think limiting your personal use, and not living in a social media world, I think you will find that you will be happier in the long run if you do that.
Oh, wow. Excellent answer. So, again, you're the job that you have, confidentiality is of extreme importance.
It is, yes.
So, so again, you don't want anything to be misconstrued, or, you can post something, people can take it, do a little editing. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. So, uh, we as teachers, we're limited. I mean, we can post, but every year we hear about teachers who lose their jobs because of something they posted. So people they just take it too far.
Yeah.
And it's not that serious. I need my job because I have to pay bills.
Right.
So
Right.
no,
Me too. Yeah.
right. What is the least favorite part of your job?
The least favorite part of my job,
Uh-oh.
let's think here. I think honestly, it doesn't get monotonous because we're always doing something different.
Right.
But things can take a long time. Things can take a long time, and I can be digging into a single legal issue for an extended period of time and
Right.
just kind of researching and writing it to death. And um, sometimes I want a little more shift in the day to day.
Okay.
But that's the nature of the gig. That's the nature of what we
Yeah.
do. And so sometimes just digging down one rabbit hole for so long. It's not a common thing though, but when it does happen, it's my least favorite.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, How would you describe the current trend in your profession? So is it trending up? Is it remaining about the same? Is it declining? Um,
I mean, I guess on what metric are we measuring?
so I mean, is it difficult? I guess what I'm asking, is it easy to get a job? Is it difficult? So, is it increasing or is it remaining sort of about the same? Um,
Yeah, without the benefit of any kind of research, I think there are plentiful legal jobs out there.
okay.
I'm not a law school. I do.
Right.
It's not to say that dream jobs are plentiful for everybody, but there is a job out there in the legal field. It's just a matter of finding it.
Right.
But I would also say it really depends in the legal field, uh, not what your specialty is, but what your capabilities are. And so
Right.
if you think like in '08 and '09, when the economy took a huge downturn, bankruptcy lawyers were in huge demand,
What?
right?
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
so if you were able, either A, if you already had the expertise in bankruptcy law, you were in a very good position, or B, if you were able to pivot to bankruptcy law,
Right.
pick that up and learn it quickly, you were in a good position. Otherwise, if you were just working on corporate transactions, right, that really wasn't happening often in '08, '09 because the
Yep.
economy was so down. Um,
Right.
Bankruptcies were. And so I think on the whole, the legal profession, salaries are consistently rising. Um,
Okay.
Firms are consistently hiring. And so you see an upward trajectory in terms of those metrics, but it's all obviously economy dependent. But there's ways to hedge against
Yeah.
the economy in this profession. So.
So definitely depends on what's going on economically speaking, as to the type of law that's trending, the law careers that are trending, right? So where do you see yourself in, let's say, 20 years? So now, you are you interested in becoming a federal judge, or do you have other aspirations career wise?
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be a judge.
Okay.
Kind of a
Okay.
crazy comment to make. Most lawyers would never say that. But one thing about being a trial judge is you don't get to pick and choose the types of cases you work on.
Oh
You
yeah.
work on what comes before the court, right? And so you got to work on some things that you don't necessarily enjoy. Um,
Okay. That's
just know what you have to do, and I think being in the private sector, you have some more choice in what you work.
okay. Okay.
So I think I'd probably stay private sector. Now, what path I take, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I guess the um, one scenario would be you just stay with a firm and you go on and you make a partner at the firm and you become a leader at your firm. The other scenario would be you establish your career at a big firm and then you go out and you work in house for a company
Okay.
or a nonprofit. Um, we've also seen there's some research to this effect that like the lawyer, the in-house counsel is there. A lot of them are establishing themselves as candidates for C-suite positions,
Okay.
especially as the general counsel position becomes a much more visible and trusted advisor at the top levels of companies. They've really established themselves as being able to kind of transition over to a C-suite position in companies. So I think all of those are outcomes that I would be happy with.
Okay.
I really have like an idyllic outcome. I don't really have an idyllic outcome at this point. I'm riding the waves right now.
Okay. So, any possibility in the future that you may open your own law practice, maybe?
I mean, I think that's always a possibility. Like I said, taking so many business courses early on and getting a degree in business, that entrepreneurship bug is always kind of there in the background. So it's always kind of been something that's
Yeah.
interested. But I know that there's also an opportunity though if you ever make partner at a firm, you can have equity in the firm, and so in a
Right.
way you're an owner, right? And an
Right.
where you got to go out and drum up business. So those two paths have always kind of been interesting to me, just because of my background in business.
Okay. Your favorite teacher, Miss Hackett, says, She says, what advice would you give to high schoolers starting college right now?
Interesting. High schoolers starting college right now. One, I'm going to be very blunt. Don't waste time and don't waste money.
Right.
Don't go to college just because that's the thing to do. And don't go and just take a bunch of courses that
Right.
aren't going to be helpful for you in the long run. So be strategic about it, right? Be strategic about where you go. Don't spend a lot of money. Try to go for as close to free as you can.
Right.
That would be my first advice. You know, and I did 2 years of community college, and that saved me a lot of money in the long run, and I wouldn't go back and change it.
Do you remember when you were in my homeroom at OHS? I said that almost on a daily basis. Go to a community college for 2 years and transfer. That should be ingrained in your brain. How many times did I tell you guys that?
You did, and I did. So
yes.
No, I would definitely, because otherwise, especially with the way the job market is shifting, where some companies aren't even requiring a 4-year degree.
Right.
You know, going in and spending all this money, really the only people you're enriching are the universities, not yourself. And so make sure that the return on investment, the ROI is there.
Yep.
But otherwise, going into college, take it. I mean, it's a big stepping stone. You know, there's a lot of independence that comes with it.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunity in college that's getting involved, doing well. You know, the relationships with professors tends to be a little more strong, especially if you can go do research with a professor or independent research under the advice of a professor. So really look out for those opportunities and take advantage of them, because you've only got a couple of years in college, depending on how long you go for.
Yep.
And it's over before you know it. So do stuff you enjoy, but at the same time, don't take out a lot of debt and set yourself up for a life.
Say it again for the people in the back. I stress this to students. People get caught up in name and prestige. I say, look, go to FTCC, go to Fayetteville Technical Community College, go to Central Carolina Community College. Then for 2 years, then transfer. If you want to go to Duke University, cool. When you graduate, you're not going to see CCCC on there. All you're going to see is Duke University, and you've saved 2 years. Come on, debt, it's ridiculous. And so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, let me add one thing to that too. It's like the debt will follow you for a long time.
Yeah,
the full name necessarily won't.
Right.
You know, when you get out into in a career, a few years in, a lot of people don't ask where you went to school, and if they do, it really doesn't change things.
No,
it's really about, can you do the job, and can you do the job well?
That part.
And so don't let the debt outlive the ROI you get from your education.
And I'm glad you said that. Sugar Daddy says, I did community college every summer. Yeah, and so I'm sure, Sugar Daddy, you didn't accumulate a lot of debt either. And I tell all students that. I said, look, only you know your financial situation, so act accordingly. And the community colleges, they work with CTE, and I'm always telling students, if you financially, if you're not where you need to be, don't go to these for-profit universities. Start at a community college. That'll get you going, and it's not very expensive. Okay, so and do you remember, Corbin? I've always loved law. You remember the shows that we would watch, Forensic Files, anything, and I'd watch. Mm-hmm. You remember I watched Live Court. I don't know why I didn't go into law. Do you remember? I mean,
that and the Dallas Cowboys, I remember.
That and the Dallas Cowboys. They're still America's team. That's never changing. I love my Dallas Cowboys. Sugar Daddy will attest to that. And again, I would talk about cases. We would look at forensic files. Oh my God, you remember that? I love law.
Yeah.
You had forgotten about that. I had to remind you.
This is some time ago.
I don't want to hear it. How you doing, Janice? I didn't want to take all your day, but I did want to talk to you. You've become a success. That's right, Terry. Them boys. Still America's team. Okay, I don't care what these other bums are saying. I know we haven't hosted the Lombardi since '95 when I was in graduate school, but it's coming this year. Write it down. It's coming. I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to let you go because you did tell me you are very busy.
You know,
So
with the territory, yes.
It comes with the territory. So this is 2023. So if you could go back, what would you tell your 2016 self? And that's when you graduated from high school. What would you tell your 2016 self? Got him.
Probably just to be, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
But keep an open mind towards opportunities.
Yeah.
Towards travel, towards people, right? Especially in those younger years of our lives, we tend to flock towards tribes, right? Like our tribe, the folks that look like us, talk like us. If they dress a way we don't necessarily like, we don't go talk to them, whatever. But keep an open mind. You can learn something from anybody and from everybody.
Yes, you can.
And so really, if you learn that, the earlier you learn that and you put that into practice, I think the better.
That you're absolutely right. Do you remember Corbin in my classroom when I was playing? I'd be playing classic rock all the time, and I'd be in there rocking out. People be looking at me like I don't live inside a box. And
right.
This is what I grew up listening to. So, and everyone they look at you and they form opinions about what you should be doing. And I've always done the opposite. So, that, like you said, think outside the box. You have to be willing to take risks. We all do.
Right.
And, you can become a success. And I tell my students now who are sitting in the very desks that you once sat in, there's no reason that you can't become a success. If you don't, it's your fault, no one else's. You have to take accountability for your actions. We all do. And if you work hard and you have work ethic, you can make it. And that's just the bottom line. There are no excuses. When they come to my room with excuses, I shut them down really quickly.
And you should keep doing that.
You remember I'm still, hey, you remember I was no nonsense. I'm still no nonsense.
That whole hallway was no nonsense. I remember it. The whole hallway down there, the CTE was no nonsense.
Yeah, but you didn't come there with no sad sob story because we'd get you.
No, that's good advice, and I hope your students take that to heart and try to practice because sometimes those are tough lessons to catch on to as a young person.
They really are.
The earlier you do, the better.
Right. So again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule and spending time here with us. And I hope that you continue to have success in your chosen field, especially since I love law. Oh God, that's what I do. I'm going to do that next lifetime since I didn't do it this lifetime.
That's never too early. Never too late, I should say. Yeah.
Right.
Get involved.
So thank you so much. And I may be reaching out to you again so we can do, maybe a Google Meet or something with my students for the fall semester. So I'll be reaching out to you again.
Always happy to,
right.
That was really, especially being a part of FBLA, seeing those older than me that would give their time back and sit down and chat with our classroom or our chapter or myself. That really ingrained in me the obligation and really the enjoyment of reaching out and giving back. And so I'm happy to ever do a Google Meet or Zoom, whatever, with the classrooms, with the teachers, and any way I can help out, I'm happy to do so.
Well, we surely thank you for coming, and I hope this isn't the last time. As you continue to strive and succeed, we want you to come back.
I'm happy to do that. So thanks so much again for having me. It was good to see you and good to hear from
Always.
Former teachers in the chat. So
yes, and you take care of yourself until we talk again.
You too now.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, we'll see you guys here again next week. Well, I have another former student. All right. Next week. And he's coming on here to share some of his experiences. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the OHS Spotlight series. I know I am. I'm reconnecting with students I haven't spoken with. Some of them I haven't spoken with since they graduated. And this is so rewarding. Thank you, Sugar Daddy. This is so rewarding to see, because everything you see on the news is negative. It's so rewarding to see, you know, students graduating and they're working in their careers and they're not out here, you know, involved in all kinds of nefarious activities. So this is great. I love this. Thank you, Reese. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it as much as I am, and we'll do it again here on the Rolyn's Reviews YouTube channel next Sunday, same time, 4:00 p.m. Folks, stay safe, and I'll see you next Sunday.